Hi everyone, it's Nicole here today with a set of 4 layered die-cut flowers cards in rainbow color. These all feature some past Spellbinders small die of the month club kit dies that are still available on the Spellbinders website. These are some of my very favorite die collections and I think they are so fun, especially when mixed and matched together. The first 2 cards I'm going to share feature these awesome May small die of the month border sentiment dies that I have die cut from black cardstock. I'm going to be using the Hello and the Smile today. I'm also linking to some other videos at the end of this one where I have used these same dies for another set of cards so you can see them used in another way. These are really clean and simple cards. In addition to the die cut border sentiment, I like to add a little stamped sentiment kind of down below that to reinforce the feeling of this card. So I'm going to pair both of my cards today with the Mama Elephant Hello Friend Wishes, stamped with clear embossing ink and embossed with white embossing powder before we adhere that border to a white side fold card base. If there's any little flecks of embossing powder left, I like to use a paintbrush to remove those. If they are not going to remove, I like to use a little Tombow Mono eraser to erase those away for a really clean look. We also want to get rid of any of that powder tool that might be left from stamping and embossing. Now I die cut all of my elements off camera to save some time, but I picked the Hello and Smile in particular for these cards today because they leave a nice section of border for these flowers. I mean, it just kind of automatically lends itself really beautifully to creating this little border next to it. You could create something similar with the Thank You and Celebrate if you wanted to. I just really liked these two for this particular style today. And I thought the sentiments from that stamp set worked really well with this as well. Now I am doing a lot of tone-on-tone layering with my flowers. All of the leaves were die cut from some Lawn Fawn Cilantro cardstock, and then I am mixing and matching all the rest of my cardstock. There is some from Lawn Fawn, Gina K, Simon Says Stamp. I went more with color rather than sticking to one brand. I have listed and linked all the cardstock colors I'm using down below in the supplies in case you're wondering what color comes from what company. These flowers are so much fun to layer. I absolutely love them. I think they're just really, really beautiful, really fun. I will also be linking to another video using these flowers in a different way at the end of this video so you can see them used in a couple of different ways. But these are just phenomenal, so beautiful, and really, really fun. So here is my first card. Now I love to add a little finishing touch, but I'm going very clean and simple today. So I'm going to just add some Nuvo crystal drops in gloss white to the centers of my flowers. I'm going to mix it up. Some are going to have 1 drop, some are going to have multiple in different sizes. It just kind of depends. I want to give them a little added interest and finish off these flowers beautifully because they really are the star of the show, and that awesome die cut border sentiment is the supporting cast. So this is the first one. My second card is going to be created exactly the same. I'm going to take you through that really quick. The only difference between the two is the word smile takes up a little bit more room. You could tuck the additional flower back behind part of that greeting if you want to. I really didn't want to go too much further than behind one of the letters on each sentiment, so I just pared it down to 4 flowers instead. I'm still going to actually use the other green leaf and stem on my next 2 cards, so there won't be any waste. Very similar to the first card, just changing up the sentiments. Everything is going to be exactly the same. where the flowers were all positioned to the left of the die cut border sentiment on the hello card. On the smile card, they're all going to be positioned over to the right, and they fill in that white space beautifully. If clean and simple really speaks your language, these are really quick and easy cards to create. I think they would be really fun to create a whole set of these to give as a gift as well. Again, I'm just buffing off any of that powder tool over the embossing once it's completely cooled, so that I don't have any of that powder residue on the finished card. This is so important especially on darker colors of cardstock where it really shows up, because it kind of takes away from the overall look of the card. As much as I love white embossing on black, and the powder tool is really so handy to keep those little flecks from migrating everywhere. You don't want that powder left over on the card. And again, I'm taking that Tombow Mono eraser and just making sure I've got rid of any of those little white flakes that might be hanging out on my black cardstock. So here is a look at the 4 flowers I'm going to use. Again, I've mixed and matched them. I tried to kind of do something different or do different combinations for all of my cards, just so you can see that you can mix and match all kinds of these flower layers to do whatever you want with. They are really fun and so, so pretty. Just like before, I'm going to layer these and position them right here to the right of my greeting. I'm layering all the flowers first. I use a little liquid glue for the stems and leaves. That's the Ranger Multi-Matte Medium. For my flowers, I found the glue dots worked well. You could use liquid adhesive for this as if you wanted to. I tend to keep my liquid adhesive for things that are so super small that there's not another adhesive that it's going to work really well. The glue dots work great behind the flower sections, so I use the glue dots for that, and then liquid adhesive for the stems. Again, finishing with some Nuvo crystal drops. So there's a look at my 2 cards with the border sentiments and the spring flowers. Now we're going to combine the spring flowers with the March 2018 small die of the month, Gilded tags and frames. These frames are an incredible basic. Last week I shared another video that used some of these for a Christmas card paired with the snowman builder. So you can see them used in that way. You can see them used with the spring flowers here. Plus I also have another video that features using them with the Panda Die Delights from Spellbinders in another way. So really, really versatile. These are a great basic. Again, you can use them and make frames, or you can use them and make labels. So I've used them in a couple ways. This is going to be frames. I use them as frames with the pandas, but with my snowman cards, I just used the large frame and used it as a label or a sign that the snowmen are holding. You could use the small pieces individually, you could use the large ones individually, or you can use them together as I'm showing here. Lots and lots of great ways to use these. On top fold card bases this time, I am going to use some Simon Says Stamp Big Thanks Words stamps to stamp the scripty word thanks kind of positioned underneath my gilded frame. And I'm going to do this on both cards. And then with this Big Thanks stamp set, there's lots of small supporting phrases as well as lots of different options for the word thanks. And I'm going to switch up the small phrase I use on both cards just for a little added interest. This again is another idea of a card set that you could create multiples of very easily. Go through and very assembly line style, stamp all of the sentiments on these card bases, go ahead and die cut all of your elements and then assemble them on your cards. To make it even easier, you could just add frames and these layered flowers and that could be it. I really felt like there was so much white space, and you guys know me, I love color and I love to kind of fill in. So even though these are clean and simple, I went ahead and added some additional frames around these that I'll show you here in a little bit to show you how I added lots of pops of color all the way around the focal point of my card. I've used some score tape to adhere my frame to the card, and then I'm going to glue 3 flowers, or 3 stems rather, coming up out of my frame, and then I'm going to layer my flowers just like I did on the other card for these 3 flower stems. Each card's going to feature 3 flowers. So you might remember the spring flowers die collection, the leaves or the stems. It's a die that has 5 of these on there. So for my first card, I used all 5. My second card with the border sentiment, I used 4, so I had a leftover. So I die cut the leaves again, which left me with those 5 plus the 1 leftover, so I had 6, which gave me 3 stems to use on both cards. And that also allowed me not to have any leftovers, which worked really well for this particular project today. Finishing off with my Nuvo crystal drops, and as I finished that, I looked at it and I was working on my second card, I was like, that's just so much white space. So what I ended up doing is taking the fancy edged rectangles Spellbinders dies, and I used the 2 largest dies from this, taped them together with Post-it tape, and die cut them from the colors of rainbow cardstock that I used here for all of my flowers. And I'm going to use score tape again, and to really make this kind of interesting and fun, I'm going to tip them at an angle and fill in the front of my card, and I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to start with my first frame, and you can see part of it is hanging off the edge. Then I'm going to take little sections of all these others, and some of them were die cut from scraps, so there's not even a full frame here. And I'm going to fill in all the way around so that it looks like a background made up entirely of frames, that we've added this small black frame in the center and these pretty flowers and sentiment, but the background itself is created from frames. It's a really fun, quick and easy way to add a pop of color and a pop of kind of graphic interest to the background. Now the first one, I adhered all the frames to my background, and then I just simply took my scissors and trimmed everything off. It worked just fine, but I think it's a little bit easier on the second card. I actually went ahead and trimmed them as I went, which was a little bit easier. You can do it whatever way you want to. You can see there's so much hanging off. Now I want to save these little pieces because I might want to fill in with some of these colors on my second card. So just trimming that all up. Look how fun that is. It instantly adds color and interest to the background, where before it was just a little too white for my liking. If you like a lot more white space though, you could definitely leave it as is. So let's go ahead and add the purple frame for the second one, and you can see I'm just taking these little scraps and filling in. It works really, really great, and that way you can utilize all of these extra pieces. I'm going to go ahead and even save these and maybe make another card at another time because I have plenty to fill in with. The score tape works really well. As I mentioned earlier, if at all possible, I do try to stay away from liquid adhesive just because it tends to make the paper bow up a little bit. This 1/8 inch score tape is probably my most often used score tape. I always have a stash of it because I love it so much. We'll just fill in here, and this is going to finish off the remaining 2 cards that feature several past Spellbinders Small Die of the Month Club Kit dies that are still available at Spellbinders. I hope this has inspired you to maybe mix and match with your dies in your collection as well. The supplies I used to create these cards are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos featuring Spellbinders Small Die of the Month Club Kit dies you might be interested in. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.